space. All that I am today is by your grace, by your grace, by your grace, by your grace, by
Thank you, Father. It's another story.
Hi, Joe. You're muted. Nice to see you.
I don't have my book. Lesson 72, Tina. This is one I was just when you said you heard and something, that was what I got for you, 72.
Oh, goodness. Okay. Ooh. Oh,
Read it out.
okay. All right, lesson 72. Holding grievances is an attack on God's plan for salvation. While we have recognized that the ego's plan for salvation is the opposite of God's, we have not yet emphasized that it is an active attack on his plan and a deliberate attempt to destroy it. In the attack, God is assigned the attributes which are actually associated with the ego, while the ego appears to take on the attributes of God. The ego's fundamental wish is to replace God. In fact, the ego is the physical embodiment of this wish. For it is this wish which seems to surround the mind with a body, keeping it separate and alone and unable to reach other minds except through the body which was made to imprison it. The limit on communication cannot be the best means to expand communication. Oh gosh, yet the ego would have you believe that it is. Although the attempt to keep the limitations which a body would impose is obvious here, it is perhaps not so apparent why holding grievances is an attack on God's plan for salvation. But let us consider the things, no, but let us consider the kinds of things. Oh, which you are apt to hold grievances for. Are they not always associated with something a body does? A person says something we do not like. He does something that displeases us. He betrays his hostile thoughts in his behavior. We are not dealing here with what the person is. On the contrary, we are exclusively concerned with what he does in a body. We are doing more than failing to help in freeing him from its limitations. We are actively trying to hold him to it by confusing it with him and judging them as one. Herein is God attacked. For if his son is only a body, so must he be as well. A creator, holy, unlike his creation, is inconceivable. If God is a body, what must his plan for salvation be? What could it be but death? In trying to present himself as the author of life and not of death, he is a liar and a deceiver. Full of false promises and offering illusions in place of truth. The body's apparent reality makes this view of God quite convincing. In fact, if the body were real, it would be difficult indeed to escape this conclusion, and every grievance that you hold insists that the body is real. It overlooks entirely what your brother is. It reinforces your belief that he is a body and condemns him for it. And it asserts that his salvation must be death. Projecting this attack onto God and holding him responsible for it. To this carefully prepared arena where angry animals seek for prey and mercy cannot enter, the ego comes to save you. God made you a body. Very well. Let us accept this and be glad. As a body, do not let yourself be deprived of what the body offers. Take the little you can get. God gave you nothing. The body is your only savior. It is the death of God and your salvation. This is the universal belief of the world you see. Some hate the body and try to hurt and humiliate it. Others love the body and try to glorify and exalt it. But while it stands at the center of your concept of yourself, you are attacking God's plan for salvation and holding your grievances against Him and His creation, that you may not hear the voice of truth and welcome it as a friend. Your chosen Savior takes His place instead. It is your friend. He is your enemy. We will try today to stop these senseless attacks on salvation. We will try to welcome it instead. Our upside down perception has been ruinous to our peace of mind. We have seen ourselves in a body and the truth outside us, locked away from your awareness by the body's limitations. Now we are going to try to see this differently.
Yes.
The light of truth, the light of truth is in us, where it was placed by God. It is the body that is outside us and is not our concern. To be without a body is to be in our natural state. To recognize the light of truth in us is to recognize ourselves as we are. To see ourselves as separate from the body is to end the attack on God's plan for salvation and to accept it instead. And wherever it is accepted, it is accomplished already. Our goal in the longer practice periods today is to become aware that God's plan for salvation has already been accomplished in us. To achieve this goal, we must replace attack with acceptance. As long as we attack it, we cannot understand what God's plan for us is. We are therefore attacking what we do not recognize. Now we're going to try to lay judgment aside and ask what God's plan for us is. What is salvation, Father? I
Paula,
do
come
not
on.
know. Tell me that I may understand. Then we will wait in quiet for his answer.
Read that again.
Now we're going to try to lay judgment aside and ask what God's plan for us is. What is salvation, Father? I do not know. Tell me that I may understand. Then we will wait in quiet for his answer.
Good. Paula, can you put your camera on, please, darling? This is a full participation. If she's there. We do not know. What is salvation, Father? I do not know. There's the key. The whole reckoning that becomes an action of mind in decision making in this course is the realization that everything outside the body is false. Oh, we're live streaming it. Cool. Is that on YouTube? Cool. Okay, so I'm just trying to catch up with technology here. The whole recognition of the idea or the acceptance of the idea that what's outside is false and what's inside is true brings to bear a very simple notion, a very simple concept, and salvation is freedom from concepts, but you have to use the concepts until you no longer need them. It brings to bear the concept that when I interact with anything outside of myself, I'm making it real to me. Because if I hadn't already given it a meaning, I wouldn't react to it at all. If I truly knew that it was just a dream, that if I truly knew that nothing I see means anything, and that my thoughts about it don't mean anything. And it's not that when he says that you're not only not seeing your brother properly, but you're deliberately trying to hold your brother to an idea of being a body. That's a tough teaching, because all throughout the day, you have situations and events that show up for you where you have to interact with things through the body, seemingly as the body for a moment, and engage with other people, situations, and events in relationships that not only give you an opportunity to teach and to learn, but also exposing you what might be hidden by your reactions to the people, situation, and events, and their reactions to you. So somebody else's reaction to me as being whatever, or my reaction to them as being whatever, is the same reaction. There is only one mind. There is no separation. There's not somebody else learning of their truth through a different way or the same way as me or any other kind of thing. There is only self. When I see the world that my body's eyes see, which you cannot not see it, but when I see that world, the recognition is that I'm seeing the physical manifestation of the grievance that I have, the original grievance. The physical nature, the illusory nature of life is the grievance. The body, my body, this thing, this avatar, is the symbol of the grievance, is the symbol of the original error. But through the grace of God, by the power of the Holy Spirit in me, that gets changed around in purpose through my own willingness to become repentant and to atone for my errors, to atone for my decisions regarding the body and the situations, etc., that I seem to find myself in as this body for a moment. But it's kind of foolish to try and walk around telling yourself, oh, I'm not a body, I'm not a body, I'm not a body. So the other day I was in Canelands, which is our kind of like our mall, shopping mall. It's not huge, but it's a big one for us. It's probably about 100 stores in there, maybe more, I don't know. And I have my headphones on. I like to block out the mall music. It's usually kind of like 80s related, sort of boring stuff. It's just like, yeah. So I'm walking around with my headphones on, and I'm just hanging out with Jesus in my head, going from one store to the next, getting the things that I need. And I had the thought, or the thought was given to me. I don't really know these days because there's so much, everything's so close in my mind between the sense of separative self and the sense of true self. But the thought popped in, all of these images that I see are already beyond the time of suffering. They've already gone beyond suffering. They're not there. They don't exist. What I'm actually seeing is a memory of something that existed for an instant as an idea in the mind of God, a tiny mad idea in the mind of God, fabricated out like a kaleidoscope, constantly changing kaleidoscope, where things are always seemingly constantly changing and moving and appearing as one day this and the next day that, but it's still the same kaleidoscope. If I walk through the mall on a different day, the people will obviously be different. The sale signs in the shop windows will be different. There will be changes, but it's the same thing. It's the same kaleidoscope that I'm looking at. And eventually that kaleidoscope has its maximum use. You can only bring yourself to understand so many times that what I'm seeing is not real before finally you accept it, which is what that lesson was about, accepting salvation. Before finally you accept it, and it becomes your abiding witness. It becomes the way that you just see things in the world, but not of it. The recognition that what I see with my body's eyes is the witness to the grievance. And upon that, my own individual grievances projected as whatever I think the cause and effect relationship that I have with the images is an incredibly powerful tool. Outside is false, inside is real. And I have to remember, because the outside world, although it's not different from the inside world, it demands attention. It demands attention all the time. This person's saying something, that person's doing something. There's a constancy of value given to it, which, unless my mind training is strong, unless my mind training has mastered a level of integration where I'm viewing it as simply something gone by, I'm viewing it as simply a long ago happening or a long ago in the dream time, that demand that it has upon my attention will literally exhaust me and wear me down, because any demand on my attention requires judgment. And so it's important to take time out every day and go within to be replenished and lifted up in an instant, to have that immediate contact and that solace that comes from the internal realm, not of consciousness, but beyond consciousness, that we find through meditation, through deep meditation, deep listening, beyond the chit-chat of the conscious talking mind, the ego mind. The outside world is false. The inside world is true. On a superficial level, when you close your eyes and you attempt to be still and be quiet within, you're going to have those thoughts. Jesus calls them oddly assorted procession. You're going to have an oddly assorted arrangement of thoughts going by and trying to attract your attention, which are the internal script for the external world. But it's like a movie printed on 35mm camera film. And between each frame of the movie, there's a little thin black line that connects to the next frame and the next frame. And as you learn to slow your mind down, as you learn to become more still and to listen into the silence, to feel into the silence, you slow down that procession. And all of a sudden you become aware of the place where one thought stops and the next thought begins. And your mind automatically, given the opportunity to see that space or to feel that space or to perceive that moment of nothingness, that tiny fraction of an instant moment of nothingness, your mind will automatically go to it if you let it. Because your mind automatically knows what's in your own best interest, despite the fact that you want to keep it prisoner, despite the fact that you want to hold it to the temporal realm. So the mind has a moment of opening and whoop, it shoots between those thoughts, and there's a kind of a little click, a little moment there that happens, and the next thing you know, you're out the other side into light. But it takes determination. When I first practiced meditation, when I first started practicing meditation, I would sit for at least an hour. Most of the times of my practice, I would fall asleep. I'd have a very restful sleep. But there was times when I wouldn't fall asleep. There was times where I would sit up straight and force myself and be with determination and perseverance. I tried different kinds of meditation. In the Course in Miracles, there's 2 or 3 different approaches to the meditative action of release that Jesus is talking about. But the realization that the outside world is false and the inside world is true is something that takes a lot of learning, takes a lot of willingness to look at and to process with, and finally to accept in some regard, at some level, in some amount, so that you can begin to work with it. If this Course in Miracles is just something you read and then you go back to your normal day, blah, 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 what's the point? Enlightenment isn't through Zoom meetings and stuff. It may occur, but it's like the Buddha. Just because the Buddha had his moment sitting under the Bodhi tree doesn't mean that if you go sit under a Bodhi tree that you're going to reach enlightenment. Even though in the religiosity of Buddhism, the Bodhi tree has become one of their sacred sort of iconic images. But that's not at all what Buddha taught. It's like Christians who carry crosses around the place, and, you know, that's not what Jesus taught. Your way is your way, and you'll find it in your way because you already did. You too have already been released from the time of suffering somewhere in your mind. But to find that, you have to realize that engaging with the suffering is never going to bring you to the point where you realize that moment that you were released from it. engaging with the figures in your dream, engaging with the meaningless nothing, talking about the weather and talking about this and talking about that. There's nothing there. All you're doing is perpetuating not finding the time of your release from suffering. And so you have to make a decision. You have to choose again. No, I'm not going to do that. Sometimes you have to. Sometimes you have to engage. The government officers might call you in and ask you questions and all sorts of things. And you realize that there's a higher purpose even for that. So you accept it and you answer the silly questions and everything else that goes on. But then you have to take your solace again. Let me give all this to God. I have no clue what that was for. Somewhere it was for my healing. Somewhere there was something for me in it. But on the surface, it just looks like whatever. What's really happening there? What's happening behind the scenes? The outside world is the grievance. The inside world is truth. That helps you to make an easy determination between how it is that you're going to make your decisions for what it is you think you're about in service to God. Am I making up more time? Am I adding insult to injury? At the very least, you can step back from making those immediate decisions on the surface and take a moment. Let me ask within, what should I do here? How should I respond? I don't want to perpetuate suffering. I don't want to increase the aggravation of my brother's experience if I can help it. And as you become more miracle-minded, you learn that you can help it. I have a few, I have one particular Buddhist friend who's a Mahayana Buddhist, who never answers any questions. She just smiles and nods and has this sort of abiding understanding that the question is only for her to answer for herself, because there's nothing outside of herself. Which I guess is one thing, because in that particular aspect of Buddhism, their sole purpose is to reach enlightenment, not specifically to be of help to others. That's whatever the other Buddhism is. And in our Course in Miracles, however, it's both things. It's like others are my opportunity. Others present me with the situations and events and everything that I need for my higher good, so that I can then share it, because ideas are increased by sharing, so that I can then share it with my world, increasing the vibration overall. It wouldn't have been much good if Jesus just had his own revelation and kept it to himself, just wandering around, nodding and smiling at the disciples and, seeing them simply as figures in his dream. I'm sure he knew they were figures in his dream, but they were figures in his dream that could also be useful to him in his mission to end the time of suffering for everybody, by taking those ideas that he taught them and sharing them with others. And still today we have Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and Thomas, if you ever read the book Gospel of Thomas. But I'm always sitting here doing this first. I'm always putting my finger on my nose first, or trying to. Sometimes I forget. When I interact with the world, there's a slight difference between when you interact with students of A Course in Miracles, let's say, or students of a spiritual path, because there's a recognition there that you're both there to be helpful for a certain purpose. But in general, when you interact with the world, you're interacting with a grievance. There's not a moment in which God's voice ceases to call upon your forgiveness to save you. Not a moment. And that recognition that there's not a moment that I'm out in the world, there's not a moment that I'm presenting myself or expressing from my truth externally, that I'm not doing that to the grievance, to the very thing that doesn't want it. But the miracle goes with me, because man is a miracle. The miracle goes with me, and the nature of a miracle is that it's miraculous. You don't know how it changes things. You can't know. As soon as you think you know how the miracle ought to look, or how healing ought to happen, or change ought to happen, you're denying the miraculous nature of it. Is that a miracle? Well, if you have to ask the question, obviously it wasn't. Because when it's a miracle, you know it. Because the only way that it could have possibly happened was by a miracle. It's like when people get up out of their wheelchairs, at Lourdes, and have these miraculous healings and things like that. It's by the power of their faith. Of course, it has nothing to do with the water of Lourdes. But the idea of the faith and the catalyst for the witness to faith come together in that moment, and things happen. The outside world and the inside world are one and the same. But that one and the same represents the grievance, just as all of my thoughts represent what the grievance is. All of my little symbols, all of my words and ideas and concepts, including my spiritual ones, represent the grievance, represent the original error. They cannot not, because all form is illusory. Words are form. Language is form. It's a specific formulation of phonetic sounds expressed through symbols. So the outside world and the inside world of my mind, of my thinking, it's the same thing. If I'm attempting to heal, or if I'm attempting to bring peace out there to my outside world, it's going to take a very long time indeed. I would have to convince everybody one by one that forgiveness is in their own best interests. And to stay true to that. Are you onto that, Tina? But when I venture into my internal world and I refuse to allow it to determine the nature of my internal activity, I refuse to listen to it, then I can find something else that happens in there, something else that goes on in consciousness and beyond consciousness, because consciousness is still part of mind. But it's a part that is learnt badly and taught me very badly. But yet it's still part of mind because everything is one. The opposite of life is not death. It's another form of life. But it's a form that must be changed. It's a form that must be healed and transformed. But to transform it, I need a reference. Otherwise, what am I going to transform it towards? I don't know what I'm trying to change it into. I don't know how it's all supposed to go. Jesus says in the Course, when revelation occurs, the need for miracles is over. Because revelation is direct experience, direct union with God, direct experience, very personal with God. And when you hold any one of your thoughts up, any one of your thoughts, no matter how lofty it is or how spiritual you think it is, and you have the experience of God through which to look at it as a reference, you realize that one's completely out of whack and the other one's true. No matter how valid you might think it is to you, it's still an illusion. And there has to come that point where there's a willingness or an acceptance of that in order to let it go. And some of them are very emotionally loaded, and you won't want to let go of those thoughts, that kind of thinking. When you've had revelation, you know that you have to. You know that you cannot maintain it, because it makes no sense to try and pretend that truth is not true, because you've already experienced it in your own mind. But when you haven't had revelation, you need the miracle again and again and again. You have to live in faith and learn to become miracle-minded over and over and over with every decision and every thought. The outside world is false and the inside world is true. Not the inside world of your thoughts. But that's included. Everything is included. Which is why when you find yourself in a situation in the external world, you just simply include it in until the point where you realize there's no validity in it for you anymore. Where it becomes simply an echo of a figure in a dream, of something that is already gone beyond the time of suffering. Until then, you'll continue to try and give it meaning. And you'll get the results of that. I always think this would be fairly difficult to do in a relationship if you're in a committed relationship, because you have to begin to see that the relationship in itself is bound by a use-by date. Because if you're truly in the process of healing your mind, The relationship only exists for that purpose. And if the nature of healing is miraculous, instantaneous, here and now, then lingering in time, pretending to heal, whilst actually keeping your partner or actually keeping that other person hostage to your false pretense, is pointless. What are you doing? At some point, you have to realize this is just between you and God. Every time you want a relationship in the world, every time you think there's someone or something out there that's going to offer you something, even in the process of healing, it's going to hurt you. It can and it will. Because that's the meaning you've given it. That's the power that you've given it. To hurt you. Not in the moment that you interact with it, but before you even came to this world. You brought the world with you when you came, and you take it with you when you go. You brought the world with you when you came, and you take it with you when you go. The purpose of relationships is healing, and healing is instantaneous. So what am I going to do? Am I going to interact with the figures in my dream in a way that just simply perpetuates their suffering and validates my own? Because I'm afraid to let go. I'm afraid to change. And you can bounce off that again and again and again and again and again and again and again. You have to see how insane it is. The definition of insanity is repeating the same thing over and over, expecting a different result. Repeating the same thing over and over, expecting a different result. And it's easy to be dishonest about that. I'm not repeating the same thing over and over. This is for healing. Then why isn't it healed? Why am I still in this circle, in this loop, doing the same thing again and again and again? And you have to look at it personally. You've got to really look at it personally. You see old married couples that just bicker all day, every day. They bicker and they yell and they argue at each other. Nothing really changes. There's no real peace in the relationship. But their peace is found in bickering. As crazy as that sounds. Their happiness is found in the bickering. They enjoy it. Otherwise, they wouldn't do it. And that's the insanity. It's like people often find their happiness through suffering. People often find their happiness, or always, I shouldn't say often, always. Because that's why you come to the world, to find happiness on your own terms. And if it's not unconditional love, it has to be the opposite of that, which is suffering. That's why it takes full participation, full presence, uncompromising vigilance. If you think you can walk through a shopping mall from one end to the other with the realization that none of these things that you see, none of the people or the shops are actually there, and without interacting in your thoughts, giving them any kind of a meaning, good luck, you can't. And it's crazy to try and do so. You may have the realization, you may have that moment where you go, wow, none of this is so. This is all just an illusion. This is all just the dream time. It's all Maya. But to escape from it consciously, that's another thing altogether. That requires the application of a principle called forgiveness. I forgive myself for what I think I see. And you have to allow for that forgiveness to occur. It's not words. It's not just something you say. It's an application. It's something that clicks in the mind that you actually apply and let it happen. Otherwise, all you're doing is defending yourself with the concept. Oh, there are no people. There is no one here. All these things are already beyond the time of suffering. Now, show me what that means, Jesus. Let me apply this principle of forgiveness. Let me forgive myself for the meaning I think I've given this, even in salvation, so that I can go beyond even that. Because salvation is freedom from concepts. Salvation is freedom from concepts. I'm not free from my concepts if I'm still using them, even my spiritual ones. I'm not free from my concepts if I'm still defining my experience throughout the day according to them, spiritual or worldly. My mind needs to be able to reside and abide within a state of being where conscious recognition of dreaming isn't even where I'm at. I'm beyond that. But for a moment, you have to enter into this stage where you have a conscious recognition of dreaming. Oh, I'm dreaming. Oh my God, I'm dreaming this whole thing. I'm interacting with it. I'm believing it. I'm buying into it. I think there's actually people out there doing their shopping, going into stores, buying things they don't really need. And there isn't. And you're never going to believe that. You're never going to take that on board as your own truth until you have the experience of it, until you have revelation. But until revelation comes, you need miracles. Like, God damn, Jesus, I need a damn miracle. I'm telling myself that nothing I see means anything, but what does that actually mean? Show me how nothing I see means anything applies to this moment in the shopping mall where there's all these people around buying things they don't need. Good. The outside world is false. The inside world is true. Not the inside world of your internal monologue. Just beyond that. Just beyond that. And there are many states and many experiences you can have in mind that are very convincing regarding their autonomous presence, I guess. But stillness is of God. Be still and know that I am God. The mind has to be silent. And I remember one day I was listening and I asked Jesus, how long do I have to listen to hear something, Jesus? How long do I have to listen to hear God's voice speak to me? And I heard very clearly, you have to listen for at least 8 minutes. I thought that's a very specific kind of reply, so that was good. And at the time, this is some time ago, but at the time, I was listening for a very specific purpose. I was trying to help somebody, and I needed guidance from within. And I sat for what would have been more than 8 minutes, and I held that silence. I was determined. My purpose gave me the determination. I was determined not to be distracted by my own internal monologue. And I heard the Holy Spirit talk to me and gave me the answer to the question that I wanted. And it was the right answer, but one which I was unaware of before hearing it. So everything you're about, everything in your purpose, in your process, in your action that you're about with the Course in Miracles is to bring yourself to a state of revelation readiness. It's not about the mastery of the concepts, although that will be part of it. But it's like a doctor. When a doctor studies from all his books, once he graduates as a doctor, theoretically, he doesn't need the books, because his graduation determines that he's learnt what those books have had to offer him and he's passed the test. He can now operate as a doctor. He may still keep them for a reference, but technically he doesn't need them, which is why Jesus says, and now forget this course. Your study and your application of the principle of forgiveness is to bring your mind to a state of readiness to receive something that God has been waiting to give you since time began. And it's going to be your determination to accept it that is the catalyst for you having the experience of it. Nothing more than that. Or your willingness. You could call willingness and determination the same thing. It takes a lot. It takes a lot of deep, contemplative, and studious kind of reflection on what this course is about, to actually see yourself in reference to it, to actually see whether you're actually aware of what it is that you're involved in. And it's always a coming to. It's always, well, I start off having no clue. And then as I go along, I get a little bit more of a clue. And then as I apply these lessons, the clue becomes a little bit clearer. And then you lose the clue altogether. And then you start forming the clue again. But it's always a place where, holy shit, this is a real thing. When Jesus is telling me that the things that I touch and see and smell aren't there, he knows what that means. And he tells me it because he means it. But to me, I'm totally the opposite. It's like, Jesus, you're fucking tripping. Of course they're there. Look, I'm having a drink and I'm eating my toast and this stuff tastes real and feels real. But compared to what? You've got no other reference for reality, which is why you need revelation, why you need a miracle, why you need your brother. If you could begin to understand the deep and devious nature of the trap that you find yourself in, which is a trap that you set for yourself. And it's like, man, I set that trap with a perfectly clear mind. I knew what I was doing. But I knew that in order for me not to be able to get out of the trap, I wouldn't be able to have any conscious recall to the idea that I knew what I was doing. Otherwise, I'd know how to get out of it instantly. I would have to dumb myself down to such a degree that the idea that this was my own doing in the first place would seem preposterous to me. I'll blame God. I'll just blame God. That's easy. What do you mean I'm doing this to myself? That's ridiculous. Who would do such a stupid thing? Well, I'm not going to admit to that stupid thing, so I'll just make the best of it and I'll blame everybody else. It's like there's a depth of conscious awareness of how veiled or how much amnesia or how much malaise lays across the mind, lays across the consciousness. When I tell you that you can wake up now if you want to, that you can experience direct memory of God now if you want to, that doesn't even register in you. You hear the words, but it doesn't register anywhere. It's like Jesus says, you have ears but don't hear. And you begin to get an understanding of how dumbed down you actually are. It's like, holy shit, I know this because I'm a child of God. I know this because I am all powerful with my Father. And yet I'm so disconnected from myself. I'm so out of touch with myself that when Jesus talks to me, it's almost as if I have no clue what he's saying, even though I know it perfectly. Hey, Anna. We got the upgrade from the Sharon. We got the Anna. See, all spaces must be filled. Now there's 9 of us like the Brady Bunch. We had to boot the one to get the other. So when I'm reading these lessons, when I'm reading this course, and I say to you guys, like, stop, read it again, feel it when you read it, connect with it when you read it. That's why I tell you that stuff. Because I know how dumbed down you are. I know how retarded you are in a literal sense. Because consciousness is a retardation of self. It's a total reduction. It's a densitizing, a desensitizing and a densitizing to nothingness rather than everythingness. Luckily, you can't make nothing at all. I've got Vegemite in my mustache. I've discovered a new thing, Joe, Vegemite on bagels with butter under the griller. You'll have to try it. I don't know if you've tried it before. Bagels are kind of good. I always remember them on Seinfeld, bagels. So, and that, you know, like adding insult to injury. It's like perceiving the outside world and then interacting with it. Perceiving the outside world is the insult, and the injury is interacting with it. That's how I hurt myself. I interact with the outside world. Hi, so-and-so, how you going? I'm just off to the shop. Hi, so-and-so, isn't it lovely weather? hi, so-and-so, making those things, you cannot not make them real to yourself when you do that, because you have to give them a value in the first place in order to be able to do that, because language is an attempt to communicate miscreatively. So you're deliberately projecting out, extending a miscreative perception of yourself in relationship to what you think is out there in order to justify the attempt to communicate. It's not about true communication, because true communication is seen in light, doesn't need words, and it has no sort of implied mutual understanding of the meaning that's required to actually be a successful communicator, because you understand everything all at once in the moment of true communication. But when I interact with the figures in my dream, I'm deliberately attempting to maintain my dumbing down, deliberately attempting to hold myself accountable to littleness. It's like, well, I don't want to do that anymore. There's moments where I have to, but then I remember to take my rest. When I'm at work or when I'm doing whatever, it's like, people are going to ask questions. You're going to have to give answers. Take your rest. Spend a moment in meditation. Let it all go. It's like, all right, here's the situation. And then you be vigilant. Watch out for when it comes around again and again and again. Don't kid yourself that you're healed just because you've got a copy of A Course in Miracles and you think you know what it says. Jesus is telling me I'm healed and whole and perfect. Well, good. That'll be true when you have no situations that distract you from your peace. That'll be true when you have no one that upsets you or gives you a story to tell, or that presents the same thing again and again and again. And we all have that. I have that. Don't think I'm separate from you guys. I still have the same shit every day, day in, day out, and I have to go through it, and I have to bring myself to that point of confrontation with it, the same as you guys do. Exactly the same. Wake up in the morning, put our pants on the same damn way. Or not. I heard Tina there just, and Bernadette. You guys are just terrible. They're always imagining my ass. It's like the master's ass. What was that book? What was that book where they have no clothes? The Emperor's clothes or something?
The Emperor has no clothes.
The Emperor has no clothes, and the Emperor was walking around naked, but everybody wasn't allowed to tell him he was naked or something. It's like,
yeah, they all told him he was fly.
yeah, he's looking good. Looking good there, boss.
I thought you were talking about the first chapter of your book.
What's in the first chapter of my book?
We were talking about it when, that day, but we won't talk about it now. We'll talk about it. Dear ones.
No, talk about it now. I don't even remember my book. I've never actually read my book.
No, the first chapter of your new book.
Oh. Do we have a new book already?
No, we don't. We'll talk another time.
Yeah. I think you should collab with Bernadette on that. She seems to like the idea of the Emperor's clothes or whatever. Well, yeah, we'll call it something. So it takes a lot. We're going to read the first 12 lessons from the 20-minute book in a minute. And I want you to try and get a sense, not of what the lesson's saying, but just to try and get a sense of how difficult it is, or how distant you might feel from a true connection with the words. Because if you truly connect with those words, they will activate you. They will do something within. They will bring you to a point of conflict. They cannot not, because your body is the symbol of conflict. Your experience on earth is the representation of an idea in the mind of God that is the outward picturing of conflict. It's all the one thing. Whether you're enlightened or not enlightened, it's still the same. The world will never change for what it is. You just learn to look beyond it. You just learn to have more of an altruistic perspective of it, so that it no longer affects you, and so that when you go through the particulars of your own cycles of things, you learn more and more to become aware for that catalytic point where it is that it's going to have to be a miracle, rather than the point where you actually react and perpetuate it and make it real, doubling up the idea of suffering. It's like, this shit keeps happening and I keep doing the same thing. It's like, well, something else needs to change. Not change on my own terms, change miraculously, because my own terms are only going to put more of my own dumb ideas into the situation in a different way, and perhaps change the situation, but not in a way that brings me any availability of peace. It'll just present me back the same conflicted sense of self that I have from a different angle. And maybe that'll be helpful. I don't know. Maybe you've got to be hit upside the head one way and then hit upside the head the other way might be better. I don't know. How many times you want to get the results of your own thinking? How many times you want to bang your head against the wall? I'm whole and perfect already. Anna, say it to me. I'm whole and perfect already. Good. I'm whole and perfect already. Now, the place in my mind where that's actually true for me, and not just the words that I say, is the same place in my mind that when I'm reading these workbook lessons and actually having some kind of a reaction to them, it's the same thing. It's like, holy shit. I see that there's a thing that Jesus is saying, and then there's a thing that I'm saying. And there seems to be this little gap between his authority of truth in that and my understanding of the authority of truth as being my own experience. It's like when Jesus slapped me up on the back and goes, hey, man, you're perfect. Can I turn around and slap him on the back and say, hey, yeah, I know? Or is there that moment? Do I touch the Messiah? Do I dare? Do I dare slap Jesus on the back? This guy? Is he my brother? Or is there some kind of worship there? Is there some kind of idolatry there? Because that's what the external world is. It's idolatry. All men are equal. Anna, read the first lesson. Are you living in your car? Homeless? Or are you in between places?
No, I'm at work.
Breathe. Now remember, try to get a sense, not what the lesson is saying, but where it is that you abide with the lesson. Am I totally owning this thing that I'm reading? Or is there still a little gap? Can I slap Jesus on the back with this or what? Go for it. Paula, you're next.
Nothing I see means anything. The reason this is so is that I see nothing, and nothing has no meaning. It is necessary that I recognize this, that I may learn to see. What I think I see now what I think I see now is taking the place is taking the place of vision.
There you go. Ready?
I must let it go. I must.
Yes. Breathe.
I must let it go by realizing that it has no meaning,
Good.
so that vision may take its place.
Good. That's active in you. You know, when you want to see, it'll be in joy. When you want to see, it will be in joy. You will be joyous. You cannot see your brother without joy. It comes from you first. There's a place in your heart and in your mind where there's a recognition of, wow, these are all my brothers. Wow, these are all my brothers. And that's a joyous occurrence. That's a joyous thing. It's sacred in you. It's something beautiful.
Yeah.
And you feel it, and you feel it. It's not a concept. It's not a workbook lesson of the course. You got to get beyond the course. You're doing great.
No, I've had glimpses of that recently.
Right. I'm not surprised. There's a passion in each of us for unconditional love. I just want to love unconditionally. I'm fucking sick of grievances. I'm sick of my storytelling. I'm sick of everything. I just want love. And that's all. I wouldn't even want there to be any idea of a grievance. What the fuck would I even want that for? That's a place where you sort of sink into in your heart, and it's like, man, it crushes the soul because you want it so bad. You want it more than your life because your life isn't worth living without it. It's not worth going on without it. And yet you have to go on. There's no point in throwing yourself off a cliff. The body is your tool, your vessel for experience, for learning. But I'm always nurturing that joy. I'm always reminding myself what it is I truly want. I want that joy. I want that happiness. I want to see my brothers truly, not the body, not the aging forms that get old and wrinkly and die. That's not my brother. What is it that is the animating force that gives the appearance of life to this body? Which Jesus is telling me I can see with true vision if I want to. That's my brother. The ghost in the shell. Not even in the shell, but in eternity. Operating the shell by remote almost. The avatar, the form. It's like little by little, every day you do these lessons and you're reminding yourself again and again what it is you truly want until it becomes more valuable than what it is you think you want, which is the outside world. I'm done with the outside world. There's nothing there I want. I don't want another relationship in order to get the results of my thinking and to learn. Because if the totality of learning is available to me right now, but for the asking, why wouldn't I ask for it? The only reason I don't ask for it is because I don't really want it. I still don't trust. I still don't have enough faith. I still don't truly believe. But yet when you take leaps of faith in your life, when you live your life in faith, you will come to believe, and that's the only way that you will come to believe. You're not going to believe on your own terms. You're not going to come to the realization that you're supported by a higher power if you're still trying to control things, if you're still trying to live according to concepts and principles and the Course in Miracles and blah, blah, blah. You have to live in faith. And then every moment that you live in faith, every time you don't know what to do, and it's like, well, I'm just going to let it be a miracle. And you don't jump in to offer an alternative, something else is going to happen. Sometimes just seemingly a small little thing, sometimes quite profound. And you're like, wow, I was totally supported there. And eventually all that recognition of being supported again and again and again, it builds up because faith is its own reward. Until eventually you can't deny it any longer and you become to this place where you want to know, what is this power that's supporting me? I've seen it in my acts of faith. I feel its presence. I get a sense of it, but yet I haven't experienced direct union with it. I don't remember it completely. I want to experience it. And that will take you to the place where the prayer of the heart is within you. Paula, read the next one, please.
You're muted.
I have given what I see all the meaning it has for me. I have judged everything I look upon, and it is this and only this that I see.
Now stop.
This...
Make it personal. This is talking to you. You're not in a Zoom meeting reading it out for everybody else. This is your opportunity. This is your moment to connect with these words and to find them somewhere in you, because you wrote these words. These are a gift to yourself that you put into play, and you stumble across them in a book called A Course in Miracles that you find somewhere in your life as if somehow it just appeared. But it's part of your script, just as I am, just as everybody else in this room is. And this course is telling you now, Paula, now. Breathe and connect. Let it be personal. If it hurts, let it hurt. Go into it.
Everything I look upon, and it is this and only this that I see. This is not vision. It is merely an illusion of reality, because my judgments have been made quite apart from reality.
All right, stop. Look at Anna. Anna used to read. You can't see Anna.
I can only see you.
You have to go into the whole thing, into the whole screen.
I'm not sure how to do that.
You on your phone?
Yep.
Swipe. Swipe up or down. No, okay, don't turn yourself off.
Oh, yep. Now I can see everyone.
Anna's literally in a process of awakening. That's what awakening looks like. She used to sit there and read that like you. Meh, 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 meh. Right? Everybody does. Everybody always reads it from this very, very thin, narrow kind of conscious sense of themselves until finally it starts to get in. And then it begins to bust you open. And you've got to push. It's like, I don't know, me and Francois and Kevin really can't relate to this, but but it's like pushing a baby. You got to push that out. You got to push with all your heart. You got to give it that, and again and again and again until it's done. No matter how much it hurts. No matter how much you think you can't do it. It's the same thing on an emotional level. You have to connect with it. You've got to let Jesus be talking to you personally and not defend yourself. I want to feel these words, Jesus. I want to feel them. I want them to react in me. I want them to cause a freaking upset and tip all the apples out of my cart. Because my apples are only ever going to go rotten again and again and again and again. Maybe you can try watermelons or maybe whatever, but it's going to be the same thing. So read it again from the start, Paula. Breathe. Sit up straight. Sit up straight. Would you slouch down if you knew Jesus was in the room? Or would you be sitting paying attention? You'd be hanging on every word. You'd be like, holy fuck, this is the Messiah. How privileged are you to be at that Last Supper? This is your Last Supper.
I have given what I see all the meaning it has for me. I have judged everything I look upon, and it is this and only this that I see.
How does that make you feel? When you read that, you don't feel anything. You're dead. There's no reaction at all. It's like you're reading a page out of Women's Day. Let it in, Paula. Let it in. Feel it.
I have judged everything I look upon, and it is this and only this that I see. This is not vision. It is merely an illusion of reality, because my judgments have been made quite apart from reality.
Stop. Bernadette, read the same lesson, please. Connect. You've got to crack the shell.
I have given what I see all the meanings it has for me. I have judged everything I look upon. And it is this and only this I see.
Stop. Paula, do you see that? Now, that same truth is alive in you somewhere. Exactly the same. Exactly the same. Because the realm of ego is emotion. All emotions are of the ego. And we're going to root them out. We're going to uncover them. We're going to dig them up through using these workbook lessons. Because they echo to false premise. They give credence to false premise. And so they bear the witness to the presence of Christ at the same time. They literally speak for the truth of Jesus's words. To deny God, there would have to be a God in the first place for you to be able to deny. And so living in denial of God is literally living in the determination and the acceptance of God, but in reverse. You have to crack the shell of consciousness. You've got to open yourself up to feeling. Open yourself up to reason. So heart and mind come together, not just mind. This is a course in mind training. But the prayer of the heart that God put there himself is within you right now. And so you have to bring both things together. The determination of the mind and the passion of the heart. In the outset, the passion of that heart is going to look like a raw and unbridled emotional upheaval. It's going to look like a falling apart of everything. It's going to look like Bernadette if she stopped trying to keep it all together. Even now, she's trying to keep it all together. But the experience of direct union of God is within you in that moment where you refuse to tell yourself, I'm going to keep it all together just a little bit, like Bernadette's doing. I'm just going to let this totally fall apart. I'm going to let myself have this moment 100% and just melt into nothingness. And it'll look ugly. Ugly. Umbaba ugly. Ugly. There's no such thing as a pristine spiritual awakening. Jesus says a tiny moment of terror, perhaps. I always get up him. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about, Jesus? A tiny moment of terror. It's been 2,000 years. You've obviously forgotten exactly the particulars of that tiny moment of terror. You're obviously downplaying it for the purposes of selling more Course in Miracles books. There's no such thing as a tiny moment of terror. It's a horrific awakening. That's why babies come out of the birth canal screaming. Ah, their heads all pointy and shit. It's the same thing. It's traumatic. And it has to be traumatic. But you will learn to associate it not with trauma, but with joy. You will learn to associate that emotional upheaval with the joy of the recognition that actually something true is occurring in you. And the burden of it will become not really tolerable, but it will become graceful. You'll learn to equate your emotional release with, oh, thank you, Father, rather than what the fuck's happening to me. And you've got to push into it. You've really got to push into it. The world is not a nice place, Paula. It's a place where all things come to die. All things, including you, including me. It's like the hard truth of the world is looking at it without blinkers on. The hard truth of the world is seeing the ugliness of it and the beauty of it and realizing there's no difference in either side. There's no difference in the wonderful things in the world than there is in the terrible things in the world, the war and the suffering and the disease. It's exactly the same thing. The outside world is all illusion. All form is illusory. So it's like the greatest gift I could give you is to offer you my absolute certainty that you have to put your whole heart and soul into this, knowing that I know that you don't even know what that means. It's the same for everybody. What is my whole heart and soul? Have I ever been totally passionate about anything in my life? Have I ever felt totally fulfilled? Truly? Or am I always looking for the next thing, the next fulfillment, the next moment that's going to take me out of and alleviate me from the boredom and the anxiety of my existential conundrum? Itchy back. No. Let it be awful. Stop trying to defend yourself from how awful it actually is. You're stuck in a trap now. You're stuck in a web. Joe, you're stuck in a web. Shannon, stuck in a web. Francois, Kevin, Anna, Tina, me. There is no way out of it other than the way you came in. By the same power of your own mind that you chose to experience the idea of separation, you have to reach that same power of your own mind to enact your liberation, to claim it. And that's going to take everything you've got because you've dumbed yourself down to this little idea of yourself as this body, which is like 10 times removed from your true power, 100 times removed from your true power. But luckily, you're supported by the Holy Spirit in all your decision-making. But he can't support you if you're half-hearted in that decision-making. You got to make a total decision. Fuck yeah, I want to read this book. I want to damn well hear this, Jesus. I want to hear this. I'm told that there's something I can experience in this. I don't just want to read this and then smile and then close the book and then, well, that was nice, wasn't it? I want to read this book and have it fucking turn me into a blubbering mess. I want to read this book and have it reach me so deeply in my soul that every soul around the world hears me scream out in apology, hears me scream out in my forgiveness. Forgive me, brothers. I did not know what I was doing. And they will. Francois, read the next one. Following Jesus is a bitch. Give up the world and follow me. You know where that guy's going? Death Valley. He's going to the valley of the shadow of death, and he's not going to stop. If you get tired and you got to stop there, he's not stopping, because the only thing to do in the desert is to leave. He keeps going. He'll lend you a hand, but he's not going to do it for you. He'll pull you up out of the water, but you're the one that's got to walk on the water. That level, that place. Read it. Oh, we've lost Francois.
There he is.
There he is. Anna's disappearing into a big ball of light. That's kind of groovy. Wow. Thank you, Father.
I do not understand anything I see.
Good.
How could I understand? How could I understand what I see when I've judged it amiss? What I see is the projection of my own errors of thought.
Good. Feel it. Let it in. Let it bust you wide open.
I do not understand what I see
Good.
because it is not understandable. There is no sense in trying to understand it. But there is every reason to let it go and make room for what can be seen and understood and loved.
Deeper, Francois. Push. Read that last sentence again. Let yourself feel it. If you can't complete the sentence, it doesn't matter. It's telling you something. Let it tell you. Let it speak to you. Let it take you where it needs to go.
But there is every reason
Yes.
to let it go. and make room for what can be seen and understood and loved.
How is it that you read it like that? Paula, how is it that he reads it like that? It's because he's connecting with it, because it's resonating in him at a level deeper than the superficial, at a level deeper than the surface. He's feeling it. His mind has made a decision somewhere that he doesn't know what these words mean and he wants to understand them. On the surface, he's going to think he knows what the words mean. But without any kind of experience, it's obvious he doesn't know what the words mean, because when he has the words resonating in him as truth, they will begin to vibrate at a level that will bring the experience to him. And this is what it always looks like in the beginning. The shedding of the old identity, the falling away of old beliefs and old thought systems, which have been built on emotion as a validating principle for the cause and effect relationship that you find yourself in separation. And that's going to be the reverse of that cause and effect relationship as you turn around, repent, and go the other way. You're going to come back into contact with all that emotionality that you tried to determine your false narrative with, as you begin to embrace the new narrative, as you begin to embrace Jesus's script, accept God's word. Shannon, same thing. Deeper. Read the next one, Shannon. Anna, listen. Yes. Good. Ted used to say, I love it when you guys leave these meetings more fucked up than when you came in. He'd say, I don't care if you leave more happy or more fucked up, as long as you don't leave exactly the same way you came in. Because the whole purpose of everything we're doing is change, 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 change. Go for it, Shannon. This will
These
be
thoughts
good.
do not mean anything.
Yes. I can feel that.
The thoughts of which I am aware do not mean anything, because I am trying to think without God. What I call my thoughts are not my real thoughts. My real thoughts are the thoughts I think with God.
Good.
I'm not aware of them because I have made my thoughts to take their place. I am willing to recognize that my thoughts do not mean anything and to let them go. I choose to have them be replaced by what they were intended to replace. My thoughts are meaningless. But all creation lies in the thoughts I think with God.
Good. Do the next one.
I am never upset for the reason I think. I am never upset for the reason I think, because I am constantly trying to justify my thoughts.
What a bitch.
I am constantly trying to make them true. I make all things my enemies so that my anger is justified and my attacks are warranted.
Read that again.
I make all things my enemies so that I make all things my enemies so that my anger is justified and my attacks are warranted. I have not realized how much I have misused everything I see by assigning this role to it.
See where he says, I have not realized? I have not realized how I have misused everything I see by assigning this role to it. The whole reading of this course is along the lines of that nature. I don't realize. I'm assigning a meaning to the course that has hurt me. I don't actually realize what this course is about. If I did, I'd run away. Because the last thing I want to do is wake up. The last thing I want to do is remember my father. And I'm not willing to accept that that's the last thing I want to do. So I'll cling to doing this course. I'll just keep doing this course and I'll convince myself that I'm looking for God. But there's nothing stopping me from remembering God except the course. It's a paradox. That's why Jesus says at the end, and now forget this course and come with wholly empty hands unto your God. That doesn't have to be in 30 years when you've able to go on all these course pages on Facebook and say, I've been doing the course for 30 years, like it's a badge of triumph. That's a badge of failure. All you're saying is for 30 years in a row, I haven't listened to a damn word Jesus has said. Let that in. At some point, you've got to walk into the desert and draw your circle. Put it all on the line. It's always only ever been all or nothing. All or nothing. Give up the world in its entirety, not just the things you think you want. I'm always realizing in every one of these damn lessons that I'm the liar. I'm the one he's talking to. Holy shit. I'm the one Jesus is talking to here. Why would he talk to me like that? I thought Jesus was supposed to be nice. Jesus, you're a damn thug. You're an emotional, mental thug. Straight out of Nazareth. It's like, God damn, thank God that my father loves me, because the mess that I've made of myself would appear at first glance to be completely unlovable. It's like I'm just totally grateful that God loves me unconditionally. It's like, can I say that for myself? Not really. I have moments, perhaps. I have moments where I feel like the grace of God might have flowed from me. Somebody might have received it and recognized it, and in that moment we had a holy instant. The rest of the time is just hell on earth, the time of suffering. But slowly, I'm learning that the time of suffering is already over, and that I can lay down my defenses at last. Kev, read the next one. Read it like you're in the passenger seat driving the car with your daughter. Fearing for your life at the intersection ahead. Oh my God.
What the fuck are you doing?
Exactly. You know, yesterday is a funny thing. Yesterday I was driving home and I got cut off by a learner driver, and they had, in Australia, they have to have a big plastic L thing on the back and the front of the car, so you know. I got cut off by a learner driver, and I'm like, nah, learner driver. So there's a moment of what do you call it? Forgiveness or compassion or whatever. And I thought I'll just change lane and go around them so that I don't get caught behind any more of their learning shenanigans. And as I pulled out from behind them into the right-hand lane, because we drive on the left, into the right-hand lane, the car in front of them changed lanes into the right-hand lane, and it was also a learner driver. So there was two learner drivers. And I'm like, all right, Jesus, I get it. I'm a learner driver. I'm just going to sit here with the learner drivers and, like, you know. It was a funny drive for a minute until we got to the split, you know, the fork in the road, and they each went a different way. So, all right, read the next one. Let's have it. Pour your heart out. Let's have this whole operatic screeching of brakes, smashing of glass, wailing of bystanders. Good.
I am upset because I see what is not there. Reality is never frightening. It is impossible that it could upset me. Reality brings only perfect peace. When I am upset, it is always because I have replaced reality with illusions I made up. The illusions are upsetting me because I have given them reality, and thus regard reality as an illusion. Nothing in God's creation is affected in any way by this confusion of mine. I am always upset by nothing.
Joe, do the next one. Joe's got a ton of shit to get out. Joe lives in a concentration camp. You know, there's never a better setup for your whole transformation than the place that you find yourself in. It's like if you could really truly see the orchestration of the characters in your dream and everything going on, pushing your buttons and giving you so many opportunities to, like, forgive. It's like, holy crap, this brings up so much stuff. But remember, it's just the tip of the iceberg. whatever it brings up, it's just the tip of the iceberg. So when you're reading these lessons and you start to feel something, it's like, don't try to continue reading with the lesson. I mean, you might continue to read the words, but focus on where it is that iceberg's starting to come up. It's like, holy shit, I feel this. There's something in my chest. It's just, it's going to bust out like that alien, in Sigourney Weaver. It's like, that's how it feels. It's like when you get a total emotional block starts to move, it feels like heavy, like in there. Go for it, Joe.
We know emotion's something I have trouble with.
Well, don't have trouble with it. Look what you just did then. Telling yourself that you have trouble with it. Stop telling yourself that story, right? The whole thing is that every time I tell myself a story about myself, it's always the false narrative. It's always not the real me. It's like, let me let go of that idea that I have trouble with it. Let me just let go of that. It's like bullshit. Why should I have trouble with it? What, am I special? I think I'm better than somebody else, that I can have trouble? Because that's what specialness is. Look at me suffer more than you. Look at me with troubles with the Course in Miracles. Let it go. Put yourself in there and pretend there's nobody here, because there is nobody here. At some point, the doors open and the cornucopia of emotional release happens, and you just like blub it out, or you laugh it out, or you just whatever it comes out. But don't tell yourself the story, because otherwise it's like trying to hold, the little boy with his finger in the dike. It's where Bernadette lives. She lives in that place where that story with the little boy with his finger in the dike. It's like, stop sticking your finger in the dike. Let the dike break. Who gives a fuck? Everybody drowns and all the people in town die, and it's the little boy's fault because he wouldn't stick his finger in the dike. He's the only one with the right size finger. Hang on a minute. I built my house below sea level. Whose fault is it really? Feel it.
I see only the past. As I look about, I condemn the world I look upon.
Is that true for you, Joe?
Probably.
When you look about, do you condemn the world you look upon? Of course you do. Yep. That poor caretaker, those people that look after those houses. It's like, holy fuck, look what I'm doing there. Good. Feel it. This is not a pretty rite of passage for anybody. So we're all in the same boat. I've been through my upturn, and Kevin's been through his upturn and whatever, but we've come out of it sort of right side up to some regard. We've got a little bit of buoyancy now in the sea of salvation. But anyone who's new to this is kind of you still got to turn your boat over. Still got to tip all those apples out.
Shiny side up, brother.
Whatever. Feel it. Start again. And I want you to specifically feel the caretaker down at your place there. Because every time I see you, you got a story about that caretaker. He's actually your savior. Let's do it.
As I look about, I condemn the world I look upon.
Yes.
I call this scene. I hold the past against everyone and everything, making them my enemies. When I have forgiven myself
and remembered who I am, I will bless everyone and everything I see. There will be no past and therefore no enemies, and I will look with God on all that I failed to see before.
Right, read the next one.
My mind is preoccupied with past thoughts. I see only my own thoughts, and my mind is preoccupied with the past. What then can I see as it is? Let me remember that I look on the past to prevent the present from dawning on my mind. Let me understand that I'm trying to use time against God. Let me learn to give the past away, realizing that in so doing, I'm giving up nothing.
Good. The only reason that I use the past to prevent the present from dawning upon my mind is because the present is completely confronting. In the true present, there's no concept. There's no idea of myself in the true present. There's just a place. There's just a moment. There's just a frequency where the realization of my true sense of self is returned to me. And I'm terrified of that because I'm terrified to love myself unconditionally. I give myself all these excuses why I can't love myself unconditionally. I'm not good at emotions. I can't do this. I'm a victim of that. Something happened to me. All these things are body stuff. And we all have our body stuff. I have my body stuff. Tina has her body stuff. We all go through it. And sometimes we have to go through it again and again and again until we realize, hang on a minute. Let me include this into my salvation as well. Let me include this repeating scenario. It's like sometimes you don't even notice it. Like it'll just be a little at the start, a little sigh. And then eventually the caretaker of my prison camp starts to become more and more annoying. Or the next door neighbor with his heavy metal music at 3 a.m. starts to become more and more annoying. And I can no longer tell myself, oh, he's just 18. He'll grow out of it. He's having fun. It's like, no, it's fucking giving me the shits. I can't sleep at 3 a.m. with this music going on. Or these drunks out in the street, in this homeless street out in front of me, or whatever's going on, this whole thing. Eventually, you just admit to it. You got to admit to how much it hurts. You know what? It does hurt. You know what? Life is pain. All life is suffering, said the Buddha. And he's right. But it doesn't have to be that way. I can confront where suffering abides in me and dig it out, pull it out like a rotten weed with the Holy Spirit. But first I've got to admit it's there. It's like, oh, I'm not good at emotions. Well, there's something we can let go of. Let me be good at emotions. Let me be the master of my fucking emotion. I'm an emotional master. Until finally I don't need them anymore. You become like Spock on the Star Trek Enterprise. Your mind just operates through premises of reason. You ever watch Star Trek, the old ones where, is it Scotty who's the engineer or whatever? Scotty's always shouting at Spock. It's like, you emotionless fucking blah, 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 blah. But Spock's always the one that's peaceful and calm and he's got it all together. He's seen that emotion gets him nothing. But human beings invest in emotion. For lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, we've been drudged down with feeling a certain way about a certain thing. And it's like, man, that has a cellular memory in me. That feeling about a certain thing, about a certain way, it's in me as a something. And you can deny it, and you can deny it, and you can deny it until you become an empty husk, until you feel like there's no creativity in you left whatsoever. But Jesus says you can't make nothing. And so you start with where you're at. It's like, all right, I feel like I'm not good with emotions. I need to ask Jesus for help with that. And then you go through this whole emotional purification, this whole mental training, this whole mind training, where the heart and the mind come together, and these packages represented by the cycles of the experience that you have in the world with your relationships come up for healing. They come up for healing. They don't come up if you're not getting out of your comfort zone. Let me walk in faith, because that's going to put me into something that I can't control, and it's going to show me where it is that healing is required. But if I'm trying to control it, then I'm going to avoid that opportunity, and it'll have to come around again. But all of that emotional stuff comes up, and you release it, you heal it, until finally you begin to get a sense that it's done, until finally the emotional reaction that you have in relationship to the situations you find yourself within the world becomes so minimal that the only application really that you have left for the emotional state is the maintenance of the body, to be in the world but not of it. You're no longer interested in interacting out there in the world as a way of verifying yourself. I don't need anyone to tell me how good I am or how shit I am. I don't care either way. I'm a child of God, same as everybody else. All men are equal. But whilst I think I can be better or worse, I'm going to look for witnesses out there in the world that confirm to me. And sometimes it takes a minute to realize, holy shit, I think I can be better or worse than somebody else. Look what I'm doing to myself in my own thinking here. My thoughts that don't mean anything, but I'm trying like hell to give them a meaning and find someone that's going to validate that meaning for me. I'm not going to validate that meaning for you. I'll let you tell me the story for a second, once, maybe twice. And then let's move on. Here and now, new moment. New moment, no story. New moment, no grievance. New moment, no judgment. New moment, no preempting expectations, projection, nothing. That's a beautiful thing. And we bring ourselves back there, finger on the nose, again and again and again. And when we forget and we have our Zoom meeting or we do our lesson, we bring ourselves back again, finger on the nose. Again and again and again, until bringing a finger on the nose becomes simply the action of mind that we abide by. I am not separate from what I think I see. I am one with all things, and I'm willing to accept that I am one with all things. That's atonement. Eventually, you become to a point of being revelation ready. You experience your own enlightenment, and then Jesus will probably send you back here, and you'll have to do Zoom meetings too. Or whatever they have in that time period you get sent back to. I look forward to the day when it's like the Matrix, the red pill or the blue pill. Choose. But until then, we're learning to choose better. We're learning to choose right. I want to choose for the Holy Spirit. I want to choose for God. I don't know how the hell to do that because I don't remember what God is, but I'm going to allow myself to feel into it, to connect with it, and to ask and to learn to recognize the voice of my own guidance within so that I can make better decisions. And you'll know it when you hear it, even if you have to listen for 8 minutes or whatever. Did everybody read one? Yeah. Bernadette, lesson 77, please. No, 76. Sorry, 76. Trying to jump the gun. 77 is a good one where I'm entitled to miracles, I think.
Mm. 76, you said, right?
Yeah, 76.
I am under no laws but God's. We have observed before how many senseless things have seemed to you to be salvation. Each has imprisoned you with laws and senseless as itself. You are not bound by them. Yet to understand that this is so, you must first realize salvation lies not there. While you would seek for it in things that has no meanings, you bind yourself to laws that makes no sense. Thus do you seek to prove salvation is there where it is not. Today we will be glad you cannot prove it. For if you could, you would forever seek salvation where it is not and never find it. The idea for today tells you once again how simple is salvation. Look for it where it waits for you, and there it will be found. Look nowhere else, for it is nowhere else. Think of think of the freedom is the recognition that you are not bound by all the strange and twisted laws you have set up to save you. You really think that you could starve unless you have stack of green paper strips and piles of metal discs? You really think a small round pellet or some fluid pushed into your veins through a sharpened needle will ward off disease and death? You really think you are alone unless another body is with you? It is insanity that thinks these things. You call them laws and put them under different names in a long catalog of rituals that have no use and serve no purpose. You think you must obey the laws of medicine, of economics, and of health. Protect the body, and you will be saved. These are not laws, but madness. The body is endangered by the mind that hurts itself. The body suffers just in order that the mind will fail to see it. It is a victim of itself. The body's suffering is a mask the mind holds up to hide what really suffers. It would not understand. It is its own enemy. that it attacks itself and wants to die. It is from this your laws would save the body. It is for this you think you are the body. There are no laws except the laws of God. This needs repeating over and over until you realize it applies to everything that you have made in position to God's will. Your magic has no meaning. What it means to save does not exist. Only what it is meant to hide will save you. The laws of God can never be replaced. We will devote today to rejoice that this is so. It is no longer a truth that we could hide. We realize instead it is the truth that keeps us free forever. Magic imprisons, but the laws of God makes free. The light has come because there are no laws but His. We will begin the longer practice period today with a short review of a different kind of laws we have believed we must obey. These would include examples of the laws of nutrition, of immunization, of medicine, medication, and of the body's protection in innumerable ways. Think further. You believe in the laws of friendship, of good relationship, and its I can't pronounce this word.
Reciprocity.
Reciprocity. Perhaps you even think that there are laws which sets forth what is God's and what is yours. Many religions have been based on this. They would not save but damn in the heaven's name. Yet they are no more strange than the other laws you hold must be obeyed to make you safe. There are no laws but God's. Dismiss all foolish magical beliefs today and hold your mind in silent readiness to hear the voice that speaks the truth to you. You will be listening to the one who says there is no laws under the laws of God. There are no laws under the laws of God. Payment is neither given nor received. Exchange cannot be made. There are no substitutes and nothing is replaced by something else. God's laws forever give and never take. Hear him who tells you this and realize how foolish are the laws you thought upheld the world you thought you saw. Then listen further. He will tell you more about the love your Father has for you, about the endless joy he offers you, about his yearning for his only Son, created as his channel for creation, denied to him by his belief in hell. Let us today open God's channels to him and let his will extend through us to him. Thus his creation endlessly increased. His voice will speak of this to us, as well as of the joy heavens which his laws keep limitless forever. We will repeat today's idea until we have listened and understood. There are no laws but God's. Then we will tell ourselves as a dedication which we practice period countless. Conclude, sorry. I am under no laws but God's. We will repeat this dedication as often as possible today, at least 4 or 5 times an hour, as well as in response to any temptation to experience ourselves as subjects to other laws throughout the day. It is our statement of freedom for all danger and all tyranny. It is our acknowledgement that God is our Father and that His Son is saved.
Any questions? No questions? Cool. I think next week we're going to start a little earlier. Is that right, Tina? What, you guys have a time change there or something?
We did it already. So do you want to start earlier?
I'm like up at 4 a.m, so we
I
could
know,
start
that's
it.
what I was trying to say. So you want to start it when you are always like, I'm in the room. And I'm like, I'm not.
Well, if it's helpful for anyone else to start a bit earlier, we can do that. I don't know what time zones you guys all sort of roll around in, but
Well, everyone else has already changed, so we just changed. I'm gonna end this live stream. We all changed in the States last week, so it's actually a cool time. We're at noon for me, so it's 3 o'clock for Anna, and Bernadette's
what
right in the
about
middle at two
Bernadette?
o'clock.
She's in
Bernadette's like 2 o'clock.
Paris or somewhere. Or...
No, she's right. She's right with us. She's in the Americas. She's in
It's already
California.
changed, Dave. Everyone's, apart from
All right.
Australia, the other countries go earlier, so they're
But
already early.
you're the one that's
All right.
always up and ready to go. Do you want to start a half an hour earlier? That's all I was
I'll
asking.
start a half an hour earlier at this end then.
Okay, so we'll start at
Like it's daylight. It's daylight much earlier now, so.
So you'll be ready?
I guess.
Okay, so we'll start a half an hour earlier.
Running around in my birthday suit.
Oh, well, nothing new.
Nothing new. All right, love you guys.
See
Feel
ya.
it. Remember, when you're gonna have. Oh, Bernadette, look at you, beautiful. We're gonna have You're gonna have thing. Oh, hang on, where's Francois? Francois, how did you go this week? Did you get on Facebook and post stuff, or did you stay off it? Good.
Stayed off.
Good. What did you notice? Did it bring stuff up?
Yeah.
Good. That's what it's for. All right. Now, this week, stay off it. Let that go deeper. Okay. Be within yourself with what it is that's going on for you. Don't externalize it out there on the keyboard, whatever. That can't help you at all. All that's going to do is put off what the inevitable. Okay. You got a good thing going on right now, and just learn to work with it. Learn to feel it, process it, and go through it rather than try to externalize it and try to take the edge off it so you don't have to feel a certain way about it. All right. It may not be nice. You may not enjoy the emotions and the whatever that goes along with it. But it's a lot better, I guarantee you, than trying to keep it all together and hold it in. All right. If you can let that happen, realizing that you've got an actual purpose for it happening rather than just having it occur to you as some kind of what the hell's going on to me moment, you'll be okay with it. All right. All that stuff that's coming up for you now, it's coming up for your release. It's coming up for your healing. It's coming up so that you can be done with it instead of carrying it around with you. Okay. Stay off Facebook for another week. I'll send Shannon over to visit you. Right. Love you guys. Feel everything. Feel it. Let it in. Let it in. Let it affect you. It's not a bad thing. Remember who walks with you.
1,000 times a day.
1,000 times a day. My Father walks with me. I am in danger nowhere in the world.
1,000 times a day. Who walks with
Peace.
me? All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Shannon, come see me. Bye. You next, Paula. Come see me. Love you. All right. Love you.